What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Trickstar deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely consistent deck that have included all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name scratched for any single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck and is the best normal summon in the entire build. Then when this card is normal summon, you can add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, which is an amazing ability. This card is basically the Stratos of the deck. And each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves, which is such a cool ability because there's a lot of Trickstar cards in this deck that do 200 damage for different reasons, which is so cool. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Lycoris. Lycoris is a really good 3-of in this build because this card is a really awesome effect. That quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand and then target one Trickstar monster you control except another copy of Lycoris to special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, return that monster back to the hand. And each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 points of damage to them for each, which is a really cool effect. The amazing thing about Lycoris is you can actually use multiple Lycorises to target the same card to be able to special summon multiple Lycorises and only bounce one monster back to from your side of the field back to your hand, which is so cool. We then play 2 copies of Korrabane. Korrabane is basically the Cyber Dragon of the deck and is actually one of the most important cards in the build because of a spicy tech card that I'm playing. But this card is really cool because if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Trickstar monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And during the damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and that monster you control gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of the turn, and you can only use one of this card's effect per turn and only once that turn. But it's amazing that this card is a light level 5 because that does come up a lot in this build. We then play a single copy of Lilybell. Lilybell is great as a 1-of in the deck because this card has the ability, if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it, then you can special summon it from your hand, which is really cool to be able to just instantly special summon this card to your side of the field. And this card can also attack directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target a Trickstar monster in the grave and add it to your hand, which is great to be able to grab back cards like your copy of Candina or even Korrabane back out of the grave. We then play 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. Fenrir is amazing as a 3-of in the build because this card can special summon itself to your side of the field if you don't control a monster. It can spot remove cards off the field and can add other copies of itself from your deck to your hand, which is so cool to be able to do. And it's basically a single-handed board breaker, which is just amazing. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's an amazing 3-of in the build just to basically stop your opponent from touching the deck. We then play 3 copies of Drollin Lockbird. Drollin Lockbird has some really funny interactions in this deck, especially with Reincarnation, where you can basically get rid of your opponent's entire hand by combining them together, which is just absolutely crazy. And also stops your opponent from searching for the rest of the turn, which is just really good. We then also play 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is really good as a 3-of in the build just to stop your opponent's monster effects. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is really important as a 1-of in the deck so we can get to our copy of Light Stage. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is very important in this deck as a 1-of just to basically stop your opponent from hand trapping you while you're going in for all of your plays. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion and 2 copies of Ready Fusion for some really spicy tech cards we're playing in the extra deck, and these cards basically basically require you to pay 1,000 life points to be able to special summon a fusion monster from your extract, which they're extremely powerful in this build because of some tech cards we're playing in the extra deck. We then play 2 copies of Super Polymerization. I feel like you could bump this card up to 3 in the build by just throwing in a third copy in the build, but it's still really good in the deck as a 2-of to break your opponent's board, because there's a lot of decks running around right now that make it really easy to be able to fusion summon away your opponent's board to be able to make a really good boss monster. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Light Stage. Light Stage is an amazing 3-of in the deck, because when this card is activated, you get to add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, which is amazing that this card is basically the Rhoda for the deck. And once per turn, you can target a set card in your opponent's spell and trap card zone, and then while this card is in the field zone, that set card cannot be activated until the end phase, and if your opponent must activate it during the end phase, or else they have to send it to the graveyard, and basically, in other terms, use it or lose it, which is super cool for this card to be able to do. And each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts battle or effect damage to your opponent, they inflict 200 extra points of damage to your opponent, which is really cool to be able to do. This card just does bonus burn damage. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity is really good just to help you with the consistency of the build, just to help you dig into the deck to get the exact cards that you need. And it helps out so much in this build because you don't need everything in the extract. It just helps out to be able to use this card to dig into your deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing a few traps, and that's going to be 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is really good just to be able to stop your opponent's monster effects and also lock down entire columns of spells and traps. This card is an amazing card to be able to use in this build along with all of our other hand traps we're using in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Trickstar Reincarnation. Reincarnation is insane. This card is really good because it lets you banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards, which is super cool to be able to just basically hand rip your opponent at any time. If you know they have certain combo pieces in their hand that they need, you can just flip this card up and deal with your opponent's entire hand at once and make them rethink their entire strategy. And this card also has the ability to banish this card from the graveyard and then target a Trickstar monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which is amazing to use this card as a monster reborn. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with a single copy of Trickstar Holly Angel. Holly Angel is really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card can get absolutely massive really quickly because each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summon to a zone this card points to, inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent. And Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, and if your opponent is inflicted damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to damage they took until the end of this turn, which is a really cool effect. We then play a single copy of Access Code. This card is really good to be able to get absolutely massive and pop cards on the field. We play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps, a single copy of SP Little Knight because this card is a double interruption. You can also trade this card out for Nightmare Cerberus for a more budget option if you want to, but if you have the SP Little Knight, definitely play it. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. IP is really good in the deck as a 1-of because you can use this card to be able to make SP Little Knight or Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn, which is just so easy to do, to be able to have a double interruption with SP Little Knight or a bounce or spin with your copy of your Unicorn. We then play a single copy of Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh is really good for one of the other cards we're playing in the extract, but this card is really good in the extract because it helps you out a lot to be able to protect yourself from battle. For some of the super poly targets, we're playing a single copy of Garua. Garua is really good as a 1-of in the deck as a super poly target, and then we play a single copy of Mud Dragon. This card is also a really good super poly target. We then play a single copy of Millennium Eyes. Millennium Eyes is great in this deck as a 1-of to basically just stop your opponent from hand trapping you because you make this card with instant fusion, which is insane, and this card is just really amazing to be able to basically just throw in defense on your side of the field and basically stop stop your opponent from using a monster effect, basically being like another copy of Call by the Grave, and then you can link it away for a copy of Linkuriboh with this card, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Barox. Barox is the weird spicy tech card that I'm playing. So this card is a level 5. And you can actually make Chaos Angel with this card in Korribane, which is really cool to be able to do because your copy of Korribane is a level 5. So you just use these cards together to be able to make Chaos Angel with Light and Dark, because this card is actually just requires a Light and a Dark monster. So you just use Barox and Korribane because it's a level 5 and a level 5. And you can treat one of them as a tuner to be able to make the copy of Chaos Angel, which is super cool because Chaos Angel says that you can use any monster as a tuner to be able to summon it out to your side of the field that's a light or a dark monster. And if you put both light and dark in this card, then light monsters or light synchro monsters that you control are unaffected by monsters activated effects, which is so super cool to be able to do. And if you use dark monsters, monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. And usually when you make this card, your opponent scoops if they're not maining like a kaiju or something. So this card is really good also because when it touches the field, it does spot remove a card off the field. And it's just a really big boss monster your opponent's not going to expect. This card is really insane, and it's basically 2 cards to make this card, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Baron. Baron is able to be made off a copy of Ash Blossom plus Fenrir, which is super easy to do in this build. It's just a really good card to be able to make in the deck. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon is really good to be able to make because you can make it in just about any deck, and it's really easy to make in this build. And then finally play a single copy of Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is just really good in this deck because you can board wipe the field, and it's really easy to be able to make. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is spicy. Like, I love the Barox and Chaos Angel combo, and that comes up all the time in this deck. It is insane how consistent being able to do this really is. And Barox, I've never seen in any deck profile. This card is insane. And like, I really love being able to play it in a deck finally, because I've had this card for like years and always wanted to play it in something. And then Chaos Angel came along. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. And it's a really fun deck to be able to play. I absolutely love being able to use ready or instant fusion to summon out that copy of Barox to make Chaos Angel. It's just super cool to be able to do with your copy of Korribane, and it's just really easy. Like, it's insane how easy it is to be able to pull off. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.